Tell us about the examples in your book of Iranian women who resisted marriage under very difficult circumstances.
There was one really extraordinary woman to whom I devote a very long chapter of the book. Her name is Tahereh, in Persian, and she was born in Qazvin to a very educated and erudite family, and also a family of both women who were learned. In other words, they wrote books, they wrote poetry. The male members of the family were also important members of the clerical elite, and she was a genius when it came to theology and also writing in both Persian and Arabic. And she went so deeply into theology that ultimately she began to question the foundations of the Shia tradition. She came into contact with the Bab, who went on to found a movement named after him called the Babis. And that group later merged with the Baha'i people. So she wasn't herself Baha'i. It's too early. That happened in the following century, but she was very, very influential for the Baha'is. And a lot of her focus, unlike her other fellow Baha'i activists, Babi activists, a lot of her focus was on gender equality. And she was married at the age of 13. And she ultimately decided that, to live the life she wanted as a teacher. She did become a mujtahid, meaning she had a very high level, she was recognized as an authority on Islamic law, which didn't happen to that many women, right? And in order to become the kind of teacher and religious leader that she wanted to be, she had to get a divorce because her husband didn't agree with her theological principles and beliefs. But she did something very, very consequential in the history of women's independence in Iran. At a conference for the Babis, who in the 1850s, when they were being persecuted by the Shah's regime, it was all men, right? And they were trying to decide the future of their new religion, which was sort of related to Shiism, but also breaking from it. She went to the stage and tore off her veil, and this is a time when no woman had ever thought of doing that, and it was a provocation. It was not so much about. It certainly was not any kind of a sexual act, but it was about expressing the independence of women and the right to speak openly in front of men. And that was an astonishing act at the time. And also, she, as you might guess from her kind of revolutionary life, her teachings, she was very known for her eloquence. She made many converts to this new movement. And she was also very critical of the government. And so they initially, the Shah actually proposed marriage to her. He thought that might silence her, but she refused his marriage proposal in poetry, in verse. They kept her under house arrest. They captured her. And when they realized, she had visitors, she was making too many converts to the faith, essentially, and she was speaking in excessively bold terms about women's liberation. So they they assassinated her. And it's often said, of course, this is maybe an apocryphal story because no one was there during it was a secret assassination. She was buried in a well. But one thing that is said about her is that before she died, she said, "You can kill me, but you cannot stop the emancipation of women." So that's one of the most famous phrases that's associated with her.